Hey, Jeanette. It's just you and I so far.
Did you say something, Christina?
No, no, I was just saying hello. I think we're the only two in here so far.
Oh, gotcha. I know. I was getting ready to say that. Then I was like, wait a minute. It's just me and her. So I thought
Yeah.
I heard you talking. I'm messaging Leah now.
Okay, perfect. All right. Okay. Hey, Noel.
I'm gonna send an email out.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Good evening, Diamante. How are you? Happy Monday.
Good.
Good evening. I apologize on my phone.
Good evening. Hi, Dr. Brooks. Hey, Larry.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Leah, are you here from ASCBC?
Yes.
Hi, sweetheart. Okay, I just want to make sure for when I call you. And I said your name correctly.
Yeah, you said my name correctly.
Awesome. Thank you. Before we start, we need 2 more people to join. I think Jamie said that she was available, except I don't have people's a lot of cell phone numbers. I'm just gonna try to ping some folks, but we have to have a quorum present. We need 2 more people from the community panel to join. So that's if y'all know what I'm
I'll
hoping.
send Jimmy a text.
Thank you. I know Charles sometimes his work gets him caught up, but just need 2 more. Okay, we should be good now. Thank you so much. Okay, we have a quorum present. We are going to go ahead and hold on.
She just texted back and said she wouldn't be joining us.
Okay. I do believe we are fine though with Megan on do account. All right, got 1, 2, 3, 4. Still got 5. Give me 1 second. I'm just gonna ping.
Carl just joined too.
Okay, lovely. Okay, we have a quorum present. Lovely. Thank you. All right, we're gonna go ahead and let our first applicant, not applicant, Lord, our first candidate in for this evening's interviews. I apologize. Excuse me, trying to get my life together. For our first, for today, hopefully everybody had a chance to view everything, and we're gonna go ahead and get started with Leah Lucci first. Hi, good evening. Hi. I just wanted for make sure I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Is it Leah Lucci?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. All right, so good evening, everyone that is here and has joined. We are now going to begin the interview for our candidate for the Board of School Commissioner position for Baltimore City Public Schools. This tonight, in accordance to the Open Meeting Act, this meeting is being recorded for future review and purposes and is open to the public. Our candidate for this evening will be Ms. Leah Lucci. But first, I have a message coming from Dr. Deborah Brooks, the Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success.
Thank you, Ms. Lugay. First, I'd like to apologize for having my camera off, but I'm driving. But I want to first thank Ms. Lugay for facilitating this process to ensure transparency and to ensure that we are doing this in decency and in order. I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success facilitates this process. We do not vote. We do not make recommendations, but we facilitate the process. And just again want to thank Ms. Lugay for making sure that this process runs with transparency and consistency. So thank you, Ms. Lugay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brooks. I appreciate that. And thank you, everyone. We're going to start with just doing introductions for everyone that is on the community panel, Ms. Lucci, and then from there, in the organization that they represent, from there, I'll pass it over back to you, and you can just introduce yourself, give us a brief overview, and then the community panel will commence in asking questions that are in our work question bank, okay? And I'm just gonna go in order from who I see on the screen, and then from there, we'll go in order that's on our list. Mr. Simmons?
Good evening, Ms. Lucci. My name is Larry Simmons, and I'm representing the Parent and Community Advisory Board of Baltimore City Schools. Good to see you.
Leah?
Hello, my name is Leah Stearns, and I will be representing ASCBC.
Thank you, Leah. Diamond Tay?
Good evening. My name's Diamond Tay Brown, and I'm the president of the Baltimore Teachers Union.
Megan?
Good evening. My name is Megan Jones, and I am an attorney with Disability Rights Maryland.
Carl?
Ms. Lucci, it's great to see you. Carl E. Perry, I'm the president of the Public School Administrators and Supervisors Association. How are you?
I'm so good.
And I do believe that we are Mackenzie.
Hi, Mackenzie Allen, Executive Director of the Maryland Alliance of Public Charter Schools.
Lovely. And I do want to acknowledge that Ms. Moore is on the call as well from Baltimore City Public Schools.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Tanisha Moore. I work with the Board of School Commissioners.
Thank you. And I will pass it over to you, Leah.
So hi, thank you everyone for being here. My name is Leah Lucci. I am currently the art teacher at Minson Westside High School. It's my 3rd year there, and I have been an educator for 11 years.
Awesome.
Should I keep talking? I was like, should I keep talking about myself? Because I could.
No, you're perfectly fine. No, you're perfectly fine. We're going to go ahead and just get started with the questions. You know that you've been waiting a bit, so we're going to start with Miss Leah from the Associated Student Congress of Baltimore City.
Okay, so the question that I have prepared is, share an experience you had making budgetary trade-offs, decisions, or advocating to shift budget priorities.
Well, as a teacher, having budget priorities is not something that I have full access to, but I have run into, what my department is allowed to have in a certain amount of time frame and when I can use that money. As an art teacher, I probably have more materials than anybody else. So I feel that I've gotten really versed in figuring out, what do I use the most? What is the most important? What is going to give all of my students access to not just my curriculum, but just to an artful experience? And what are things that they haven't had experience with that I could get for them? My school has been really supportive in getting those supplies. So I think, also just talking and communicating with my admin has been really helpful in helping me understand, how much money is allotted to my program to make it successful, and what we could use as a school to also be successful. But otherwise, I am not allowed to just take the money and do. I don't have all the access at this time.
Thank you. Carl, I believe you're next on the list.
Great. Ms. Lucci, which personal professional experience do you think most qualifies you to serve on the Board of School Commissioners?
to really stew on that, because after 11 years, I've had some experiences. um, Honestly, I know this sounds a little cheesy, but every year I feel that just getting to know hundreds of kids, just getting to know them and their families, getting to see kids shine when I think a lot of other people don't get to see them shine. And understanding that art is visual literacy. You can teach anything with art, right? It doesn't matter that I've had kids that are nonverbal, speak different languages. We're all coming together and creating something beautiful. So for me, just being able to say that I know all of my students, and I strive to know them even better, and to know my community and to know their families. And I really want to unite everyone through art. And I think that that's a really powerful thing. So I think professionally for me, just like sitting back and actually getting to see that is just such a strong, and I also think that I think people are afraid to share ideas. I don't have all the answers, but I'm not afraid to share ideas, and I'm not afraid to listen to other people's ideas. Ideas change the world, bottom line. And I think that that's a really important tool. And I try to teach my kids that. Part of like the engineering design process that we work on is, you have an idea, you have a problem, and what are the steps you need to take to solve that problem, even if it's an artful problem, right? But it can be used in any facet. And I really believe that if I was on this committee, I want to hear ideas, because ideas are going to change things. So I want to hear them and I want to be a part of them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Diamond Tay.
Good evening. My question is, share how you see the role of the CEO and the role of the school board. How do they differ? How do they overlap? How do they interact?
I will say, I think that is a struggle for me, because I think sometimes it's easy to meld them together. I know that they are two different facets. I know they work together. But do you mean the school board of commissioners and Santa Lisa's, or?
Yes.
Okay. I know that there are different committees that the school board, they focus on different things. And I know that they can impact her position as well. I know that she has a different sect. I feel that the school board is absolutely working to strive to set some goals for like the Maryland Blueprint, and for just, the school district as a whole, the communities, the families, students, teachers. And they have a lot of important decisions to make as well. So yes, they're both making important decisions, but I know they're not the same entity. But again, sometimes I think I just, like, as a teacher, get a little like, I will mix them together and put them all together, but I know that they are different. But I also want to understand more what her role is and how the board would impact that. So that is something that I actually want to learn more about.
Thank you. Megan?
How familiar are you with the rights of students with disabilities, and specifically the legal rights of students with disabilities in Maryland?
So the rate of special ed students in our district or in our state?
The rights.
I thought you were saying the rate of, okay.
Sorry.
Sorry. I'm sorry. The rights of students with disabilities. Well, I know there's FAPE, free and appropriate education, and through IDEA, everyone is guaranteed a proper education. I know not all schools have the same programs. I don't believe all schools have a citywide program, but I know my high school does, and the other schools that I've taught at do. And I will say, I know that our numbers are rising, and I think that sometimes they are slightly underestimated or underserved. Not always like where I am, but in general, that is something that happens. But I know through FAPE and IDEA, no one should have any type of rights stripped of them, for sure. And I hope that that's not happening elsewhere. That would be terrible.
Thank you. I believe, Larry, you're up next.
While the board does not manage the CEO in the traditional sense, management experience is crucial, given the board's oversight duty and role, and being the sole evaluator of the CEO. With that said, can you tell us about any experience you have had in managing and evaluating staff and providing performance feedback?
Yes, not in my current situation, but in my old school, I was a PBL instructor, and I was ahead of that. I would work really hard to not just have a team that would meet regularly, but also our goal was to have PBL in all classrooms because it can be used in any classroom. So PBL is project-based learning. So I was big on, I like touch points, being able to see people. So at least once a week, I would meet with my team, and then I would send out emails to grade level leads. I would work with them. We'd try to bring artists in to work with our students. And, not everyone is going to agree all the time, but I think that, again, it's really important to share out ideas. When people feel heard and they feel more validated, that's huge. And just talking to them about any of the issues, if they didn't understand what we were trying to do to help our students, and if they didn't appreciate that, how could we talk that out and make it something that everyone sees worth their time? I think being able to just talk out those ideas and really hear everyone is a really great starting point in managing others. Same with managing students, if they don't feel validated, they don't feel respected, they're not going to come to your class and want to do anything. So it's the same across the board there with that, the mutual respect. And just knowing that everyone has a spot in the table, but also I'm a little bit of an organizer in that way. I'm big on Scrum boards. I don't know if you guys know what those are, but they help kind of manage time and different projects that you're doing. So I'm big on that too, because I like to keep people on track. Because again, I usually have deadlines I have to meet, and it's the same with managing adults as it is with students.
Okay, thank you. I believe that those are all the questions for the folks that are on. Do
No,
we
I
have any-
didn't go. Mackenzie
Oh,
did.
I apologize. Oh, I see Charles is on. I'm sorry.
There's two of us then.
Wait, I apologize. Wait, sorry. Hey, Mackenzie. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, Mackenzie.
Share your impression of the alignment between the school board and the parents/community, and how would you respond when parents or the community are not aligned with the school board?
Well, I feel like not everything is perfect, and I'm sure that there have been times that they are not aligned. Again, communication is key. So you're saying, how do I feel about their current relationship?
Share your impression of the alignment between the school board and parents/community, and how would you respond when parents or the community are not aligned with the school board?
Okay. Well, again, like how I was saying earlier with managing adults and managing children, I think that sometimes we struggle with communication. It's not always perfect. I'm not always perfect at it. I get nervous and weird, but I think that they need to talk to each other. Bottom line, they have to hear each other. They have to get the information from each other if they want to be successful. I'm sure that it's not always, I think that sometimes information is given, but maybe it's not in a timely manner, or maybe it's not in a way that our communities are going to see it. I know that, like, for instance, this board meeting, I saw a post come up for it on the Baltimore City social media. I was like, oh, parents can see this. So that's good. That's good that you guys are doing that. But I also didn't see it until like 20 minutes ago. Not saying that it was put up 20 minutes ago, but sometimes that happens. So parents might say, that they're not getting the information in a timely manner. But I think that if we're making a point to really speak to certain communities, to all Baltimore City school communities, their parents, how are we doing that? Are we doing it in a way that everyone can access it? Are we meeting in person ever? I don't know if that is helpful. But I think that both have great intentions. I think that this board does a lot of great things. And I think that I know I can see what you guys are doing. And I just hope that parents are resonating with that as well. But again, are we reaching them in a way that is most impactful, where they're getting that information? But I haven't seen anything negative like from the communities that I serve. I haven't seen or heard anything negative. And I feel that there's been a great liaison and connection with communities and the board.
I just want to clarify, we are not members of the current school board of commissioners.
Yeah. But I'm
Okay.
saying I have seen, yeah.
Sorry, I was like, not us.
Yeah.
Not us, the board of commissioners. Okay,
Right.
awesome.
Sorry. Yeah, but from the commissioners that I have seen, like I have looked at their stuff. And again, I follow a commissioner who does a lot to help like in my school community. And I appreciate her and her posts because I find them very informative. So that's what I was saying. So like if she posts stuff, that's fantastic because I know the families are seeing it. And again, sometimes I don't see it right away. So it's like, what could they say negative other than they don't see it right away? Because the commissioner who, like I said, she lives near my school and she posts really nice things that are helpful, not just for the community, but as a whole, like giving information about what the board does.
Thank you so much. Charles.
Good evening, Charles Smith, I represent the PTA Council of Baltimore City. Has anyone asked any questions regarding financial stuff, financial information at this point? You have? Good.
I have.
All right. Can you share a time when you had a change of heart or how you would communicate that change to the people that you were impacting? Do you understand the question?
No one has asked that question, no.
Okay.
No.
But do you understand what I'm asking?
That if I've ever had a change of heart, and how did I describe that to others? Is that what you were saying?
How it impacted others.
Yeah. In education, my change of heart would be that honestly, for 8 years, I was teaching elementary. And then, like I said, I became a specialist in PBL and was still working in the elementary sector. And I very much cared about my school communities and what I was doing. But I live here, I live in Baltimore City, and I did not want to work in a community that I wasn't really a part of. I wanted to be in my own community, and I wanted to give my community the same artful experiences. So I decided to leave, and I had a change of heart, and I really, really wanted to try high school. I wanted to try something new. So it was a little scary and different, but I had to be honest to myself, because if you're not happy in what you're doing, you're not going to do well. And I wanted to try that. And again, you know, it's hard to let students down and say goodbye to students, but my change of heart wasn't necessarily a negative thing. I didn't think poorly of anybody, and hopefully they didn't think poorly of me when I decided to make that change. But I think that could be the only change of heart I've really encountered in this field. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lucci. At this time, were there any additional questions from anyone on the community panel?
I have one. It's Mackenzie. If you were selected to serve on the school board of commissioners, would you be comfortable with resigning from your current role teaching? It would be a requirement.
Yeah, I had to really think about that. If I needed to do this, then I would, because I feel like sorry, I almost feel emotional about that. I feel very passionate that I want to serve this community. And being out of the classroom is okay. I think that I still have good work to do that's not just in the classroom. Because if I step out of the classroom, then I can help more kids. So I do care about that a lot. I just have, sorry. I think that just took me back a little bit, because I had like not considered like, oh, my kids. But again, you know, it's the end of the school year. That would be it. It's not like I would just be leaving right now. That would be terrible. But sorry, it just took me off guard a little bit. But yeah, I really think that if I were to like finish out this year, say my goodbyes, if I needed to do that, if I needed to resign, I would take solace in knowing that like I'm absolutely helping a large amount of children, but I'm also helping a whole community and making things, you know, or at least striving to make things better and towards the goals of the district with the blueprint. And also, you know, again, I have ideas and I would love to share them, and I have thoughts and I want to hear, because I don't have all the answers and I don't know all of the things right now, and I want to learn them, and I'm very passionate about it, because I think Baltimore City Public Schools could just really, I think that some people have a really negative connotation, but I've met another reason why I came here is like amazing teachers. So like, if it means me stepping back and allowing another teacher to be awesome and help the umbrella, I'm okay with that. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Of course, I have a question. Ms. Lucci, what's your position on school police?
I'm a little torn on them. We have the one in particular who I think is truly amazing, and he's a great support. He helps support the kids with extracurriculars. And I know if there is a safety concern, he is of service, but I don't know. We have so many supports that sometimes I struggle with that one. I think that some kids feel very safe with them there, and some kids do not. And I think that's something that the communities should talk about too, because I feel a little torn. I don't feel negative per se, but I know I didn't have school police, and I don't know how I would feel if I was a student. Like, are you judging me? Are you out to get me? I already have an uncomfortable connotation. Are the school police doing kind of like what I was saying our one individual does? He is a coach, and he sees the kids in extracurricular ways. He checks in on them. Do they all have that kind of rapport? I don't think so. And I kind of wish that they did. I wish that they had a rapport and gave the students insight in being a police officer, maybe. Yeah. But again, it's not so much a negative connotation for me, but it is like I haven't even met them all. So it's like I feel like they're not saying hello or communicating. And again, how are you going to get people to do things if you're not talking to them? So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lucci. Were there any additional follow-up questions from anyone on the community panel? Okay, well, thank you all. Thank you very much, Ms. Lucci. Someone from the Office of the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success will be following up with you around next steps. So just any additional information. And just to be clear that if there was the opportunity to move forward and serve on the Board of School Commissioners, you would not be able to continue your role as a classroom teacher. It is in policy, so I would not be able to. That would be something for consideration. So I just want to make sure that I'm informing everyone correctly with that.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate everyone's time.
We appreciate yours, so we're wrapping it up. So yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate you.
And Noel, just to be clear, that's a classroom teacher in Baltimore City Public Schools.
Yes.
There'll be a classroom teacher in all the other 23 jurisdictions, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
It's anyone employed by city schools.
Anyone employed, right, correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'll send you that language in email. I consulted with city schools around it just to make sure everyone is clear. Because I just want to make sure they were clear around that.
Yeah. No, yeah. I think I had someone ask me like, you cool? So yeah, no, I do recognize that. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. We appreciate your time though very much.
I appreciate
your work with the kids. Thank you.
You guys. Thank you. Okay. Have a good one.
Bye.
Noel, I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that we're staying on this link instead of switching like we did before.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. I believe we tried to send an email around it. That was the one thing that was changing, so we wouldn't have to keep clicking on and off for everybody. Okay, so we are concluding that interview with Ms. Leah Lucci, and we are going to get right into our next interview. You have to excuse me. I feel like I'm getting a little sick. No, I don't need to. With Mr. Eric. I apologize, Mr. Eric Jameson up the second. Sorry, everybody. Good evening, Mr. Jameson. Are you on?
Good evening. Yes, I am. Yeah, here I am.
Okay, great. And just to make sure that I'm pronouncing your name correctly, it's Eric Jameson.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, all right, perfect. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and start this interview for Mr. Eric Jameson II, candidate for the Board of School Commissioners for the Baltimore City Public School System. Sorry, for the Baltimore City Public School System. This meeting is open to the subject to the Open Meetings Act. This meeting is being recorded for any further review and is open to the public. You will be interviewed by the community panel. We'll go ahead and give everyone an opportunity to introduce themselves. And then I'll go ahead and introduce give it to you, and you can give us a brief introduction of yourself. From there, we're going to go into a bank of questions that each one of the community panel members will ask. But first, there will be a message from our Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, Ms. Deborah Brooks, Dr. Deborah Y. Brooks.
Good evening, everyone. Again, I apologize. I will be transitioning from my phone to my computer shortly, but I first want to thank Ms. Lugay again for her diligent work in facilitating this process to ensure transparency and to make sure that everyone is aware that the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success does not ask any questions. We do not make any recommendations, but we just facilitate the process. So again, I just wanted to make sure that all were aware of this. And again, thank Ms. Lugay. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Yep, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to go across my screen so everyone has an opportunity to introduce themselves. Mackenzie.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie Allen, Executive Director of the Maryland Alliance of Public Charter Schools.
Thank you. Diamond Tay.
Diamond Tay Brown, Baltimore Teachers Union President.
Charles.
Hi, Charles Smith, PTA Council of Baltimore City.
Carl.
Good afternoon, Carl E. Perry, President of Pizzazza, the Administrators Union.
Thank you. Leah.
Leah Stearns, representing ASCBC.
Larry.
Good evening. My name is Larry Simmons, and I'm representing the Parent and Community Advisory Board of Baltimore City Schools. And I apologize for my screen being closed.
Thanks. No problem. Okay, Mr. Jameson. Did I miss anybody?
Yep, Eric Jameson II, of course, candidate for the opening seat in the Board of Public School Commission. I am a native of Baltimore, of course, product of Baltimore City Public School Systems. I'm currently a doctoral candidate at Morgan State University, and my concentration is urban and educational leadership. And thank you guys everyone for taking the time to meet today.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and go in order with asking questions. We can go ahead and start with Leah from ASCBC.
Okay, so which personal or professional experience do you think most qualifies you to serve on the Board of School Commissioners?
Thank you for the question. I think that I feel like I meet the qualifications, based on one, being a resident, and although I'm not a parent, I am someone who is very interested in education and in engaging children and families, and so I'm a executive director of a nonprofit organization called Rising Over Standards and Excelling. And one of our biggest initiatives is that we have a mentoring program. And so my experience we've been doing a mentoring program since 2015. So over that time, just working in close contact with students, middle and high school age boys and girls, and their families, I think I don't want to say it necessarily qualifies me for it, but it's definitely where my interest is peak, because I've kind of had those very specific experiences with, kids from the city and the county, and just some of the issues and challenges that they have. And so, I want to, do my part to be able to further assist them. Of course, I've done that a lot in a one-on-one setting and a group setting, but I hope that with moving into, the field of education as a career, that being on this board of commissioners will give me, additional expertise and experience to be able to assist students and families.
Mr. Jameson, I have the second question.
Yes.
Excuse me. Part of the role of the Board of School Commissioners is to hold the CEO accountable. How should the board evaluate the CEO? What components of the CEO's job should be assessed?
That's a good question. I think that, going off of I did a little bit, very, very brief research on the commissioners and just, going over the vision and the mission, just the whole idea of kind of creating that safe learning environment. I think that that's one of the things that we can hold our leaders accountable for is, making sure that they have, that we're putting in policies and strategic procedures in place to make sure that, our children are in, safe learning environments. And also I think that we can hold them accountable to making sure that we meet those kind of those priorities that are there as far as strategic priorities. So I know one of them that stuck out when I was reading was community engagement and parental engagement. And that's something that I'm very kind of big on. And so I just think that, one of the things that we can definitely make sure that we're accountable for is that those practices and those opportunities to engage our community and engage our parents is very important. And I think that that's something that, we can definitely kind of put our foot down and make sure that that's something that we're holding everyone accountable to. If I had to say one more thing that we can hold our leadership accountable for is really in, what's the best way to say it? Making sure that our stakeholders are heard. I guess that's the best way I can put it. And so, I know we have a lot of open community open opportunities for the community to ask us questions, to come to the meetings and things like that, or at least portions of the meetings and things like that. And so really just taking that feedback and making sure that we're considering that, I think that's something that we can definitely hold our leadership accountable for in that way. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Damate.
Please describe the role you think families and communities should play in decision-making at the district level. And how would you advocate for young people or parents who believe the school board doesn't listen to them?
Could you repeat the question? I just want to make sure I got the whole thing.
Sure. Please describe the role you think families and communities should play in decision-making at the district level. And how would you advocate for young people or parents who believe the school board doesn't listen to them?
I think that the role that the community plays is to really just to be involved. And like I said in the previous question, in my response to the previous question, we just have to make sure that we're, hearing, what our stakeholders are saying and what our, students are saying. And so, one way, like I mentioned before, that I know that board allows that is to, you know, have open community participation. And kind of getting into the second question, I think that, you know, even outside of those meetings times, you know, we have to have kind of open, or we have to encourage that feedback. And so I know for kids, you know, they're on social media everywhere, every platform. And so, you know, maybe giving them the opportunity to, you know, present feedback that way. Of course, you know, anytime that you can engage students, you know, face to face, is also a good opportunity to just, you know, kind of get their feedback and things like that. As far as parents, it's really a challenge. I know, especially parents in, you know, in our schools that are, you know, kind of serve our more underserved communities. You know, our parents there deal with a lot of challenges to kind of being engaged and, you know, coming to certain events and things like that, you know, with different schedules and things like that. So just kind of offering alternative ways in order for our parents to kind of give the feedback. But for those who feel like, you know, that the board doesn't listen, I would kind of advocate for them by just, you know, like I said, opening up different ways where they can be heard and things like that. Whether it's social media, whether it's in our face-to-face interactions, but also maybe just try to get creative as well, and thinking of ways where we can engage them in spaces where they are. You know, I know a big thing from the city and from the mayor's office over the past couple of years has been kind of engaging people and making sure that they have open spaces to you know, just the fellowship and just to, you know, kind of be in community. So like, you know, we're kind of the revitalization of our community centers and things like that. And so maybe having events there where we can kind of meet people where they are, you know, and kind of engage them about, you know, what they feel like they're missing from their, you know, from their schools, you know, from the board, or which way we can help. I just think that that's kind of some of the things that, you know, I'm sure you guys already do. But, you know, making sure that we do that in a more equitable way, and in spaces where we can get kind of hear the voices of those who we don't hear from as much. I think that'll help us out, and that'll help the perception of people who feel like we don't listen.
Thank you, Megan. Just Megan off.
Excuse me.
Okay, Megan is off. Mackenzie.
Hello. What role do you see charter schools playing in the city schools portfolio?
What role? Okay. The charter schools, I know they're, you know, are very popular. I won't say popular. It's kind of seems like that's where education is going. You know, just the opening of charter schools and more kind of the privatization of schools and things like that. But I think that the role there is just giving people a choice. I know growing up in Baltimore City public school systems, you know, we have zone schools, and I know it's still that way to some extent. But I know that some people feel like they don't necessarily have the ability to choose to the schools, you know, outside of maybe, you know, those citywide schools and things like that, which, you know, are very competitive. And so charter schools just provide you know, parents with another opportunity to, you know, make a choice as to, you know, which schools they want their kids to go to and what type of curriculum that they, you know, want their child to be engaged in. And so, you know, I definitely think that that's a positive thing. I guess the cautionary thing for me when I think about, you know, people having that choice is that we still want to make sure that, you know, all those schools are meeting kind of the standards, because of course we want all of our children to, you know, receive a quality education. And so giving people the choice to have a quality education and, you know, to maybe tailor some of their educational ideals to their students, I think is a good thing. But I think that we also want to make sure that, you know, those schools are providing the same level of quality education across the board.
Thank you. Larry.
So while the board does not manage the CEO in the traditional sense, management experience is crucial given the board's oversight duty and role in being the sole evaluator of the CEO. With that said, can you tell us about any experience you have in managing and evaluating staff and providing job performance?
I actually, my full-time job is within the federal government, and I'm a supervisor of a unit. And so for the past 7 years, I believe, going into 7 years, like it's been literally my one of my major duties is to evaluate the performance. So I've had units as large as 75 people to now, I think I might have the smallest unit I've ever had now, and I'm down to like 25 or so. So I have had experience, just making sure that expectations are communicated well, and that check-ins throughout the year, of employee performance, making sure that morale is good, and make sure that directives are communicated effectively. And as far as the actual performance, or my experience in the actual performance evaluation, we have a kind of rigid performance metric, where we're required to provide written feedback at least twice per year. And so, I've done that, and then also train people in order to do that well. So I do think I have a sense of how to kind of provide expectations and, make sure that things are put in place to meet them. Obviously this, that's one, way to do it. And, as you stated in the question, evaluating the CEO is not quite the same way. But I do think that I do have some background in that way. And I think the biggest thing about when you're talking about performance is communication. That's something that I'm, really high, I'm really big on, because we got to work together, and the only way we can work together is to make sure that we're on the same page. And so constant communication, and making sure that like I said, expectations are communicated, and like our goals and our strategies are communicated well. I think that's the key in order to making sure that everyone kind of meets those expectations, and that we collectively meet our goals.
Thank you. Charles?
Good evening again. What is the hardest decision impacting youth that you've ever had to make? Describe how you made the decision and the results of that decision.
Hardest. Kind of piggybacking off my response to the previous question. So, my full-time job as a supervisor, you do have to make, some challenging decisions, maybe not even always ones that you necessarily, agree with or want to do, but it's part of the job. And so a couple of years back, in the same breath as, talking about performance evaluations, I did have some employees who were not performing well. And so one of the more difficult decisions was to kind of ascertain how to help them the best. And so, we offered them some additional training, had some kind of one-on-one opportunities there, to try to, assess, what was kind of the, where the need was and what the need was. And we did our best to meet them. Unfortunately, for this employee, this particular employee, they still were not able to meet expectations, even after kind of, some kind of refresher trainings and things like that. And so I had to make the challenging decision to offer them essentially a demotion, so a position at a lower salary and grade level. And so that was a challenging decision. Some of the things that I had to do in order to make that decision was, one, just being who I am, I definitely wanted to make sure I offered them some assistance and try to, help them to do better. Because ultimately, what we really want is to make sure that everyone is kind of, doing their fair share and meeting expectations across the board. But after that was kind of unsuccessful. What I then had to do was essentially set up a review process. So I didn't give you guys any background on what I do, or what my employees do. And so basically we process cases for people who are disabled. And so, you know, when I say my employee wasn't meeting expectations, their accuracy wasn't too good as far as, you know, their ability to process the case correctly on average. And also they weren't able to kind of, I'll say they weren't able to help as many people, you know, as we would have liked them. And so, you know, we want to kind of, you know, up their level of proficiency overall. And so one of the things that I had to do was set up a review process with one of our technical leads. And basically they work one-on-one together to, you know, kind of, you know, go over their cases, go over the employees' cases, you know, kind of give them some, you know, instant feedback and assist them. And so, you know, having put forth that review process, one of the things that I did was meet with the employee and the technical lead every week and make sure that, you know, they were having productive interactions throughout the week to, you know, kind of track level of progress and, you know, some of the things that, you know, they were able to learn or some of the things that they were able to improve on, or even, you know, hopefully start to begin to highlight, you know, some other things that, you know, we could work on in the coming weeks. And so by meeting every week, you know, to have those conversations and keep that level of communication open, that gave me a lot of insight, and it allowed me to kind of be able to make the decision when the time came. And so after the review process probably lasted probably 2 months, 60 days. And so after that 60-day process, I kept track of, you know, their accuracy and doing their work. And I kind of just evaluated it with, you know, what our expectations are for those people who were new to the job, you know, and in a learning environment. And then I had to make that decision, that uncomfortable decision to find them, you know, an additional opportunity because, you know, it just wasn't working out where they were. And so the other thing I did was communicate with my leadership at my job, my directors, you know, make sure they were in the loop, that they knew everything that we did, all of our efforts to help the employee. Also kept them in the loop with how the employee was performing on that review process. And then we worked together to find a position that we felt like was more suitable for them, that would not impact them financially, or that would least impact them financially. And then, you know, I had to talk with that employee and make sure that they, you know, understood kind of where they were, and as well as what the options were. And then actually, when it came down to making that decision, talking to our labor and employee relations staff, making sure that, you know, we were doing everything from an ethical standpoint that was fair to that employee, and making sure that the employee had the opportunity to, you know, rebut our decision, and to kind of put forth any evidence that they felt like, you know, was necessary. But at the conclusion of all that, you know, we did wind up having to recommend the motion for that employee. I don't want to say good news, but while I think that this isn't such a horror story, although it, you know, resulted in a change of position, I have spoken with that employee since, and the new position that they enjoy, you know, a lot better and are more comfortable and they're actually thriving in that position. So while I wasn't proud of, you know, kind of where that situation took us, I do feel that, you know, the correct decision was made and that we did it in the right way. And, you know, that we could still kind of have an amicable relationship, and, you know, in a professional relationship, and making sure that we place someone in a position where they can provide government service, you know, quality government service, you know, the way that we expect our employees to. So.
Thank you so much. Were there any follow-up questions from anybody from the community panel?
Would like to do one. Can you describe any work you've done with youth, or youth in education, youth in counseling, anything you've done with youth?
Okay. So I mentioned it before, my nonprofit organization, ROSE for short. We're basically a community development organization, and what we basically do is work with stakeholders and communities to kind of assess, different needs that children and family have. And then we try to meet those needs. We try to pool our resources to meet those needs. And talked about one of our larger initiatives, which is our mentoring program. And so that program meets twice per month on Saturdays. And I'll say at our peak pre-pandemic, we were probably had about 35 students from middle and high school. What we would do is, you hear a lot of people talk about like life skills, and we would definitely kind of preach those, just making sure that making sure our students were well equipped with, I wouldn't necessarily call it life skills. I more call them soft skills. So, we talk a lot about communication and conflict resolution, and having like preservation, like self-preservation and respectfulness and things like that. But we also help them out academically. We took them places. One of our other bigger initiatives was our college tour. We did an annual college tour for about 4 years straight before the pandemic. So we took mostly high schoolers in that sense to HBCUs up and down. Well, most of them are in the South. So, we went as far north as Pennsylvania and as far south as Georgia, and a little west towards Alabama as well. So we had those type of interactions where we try to expose our students to, to the college life. We also kind of focus a lot on entrepreneurship. So we would have workshops and guest speakers of people who, are entrepreneurs who have, businesses, who could kind of give our students, a taste of that life and some of our resources, their resources to help them kind of develop their, entrepreneurial spirit. And so our mentoring program is definitely where I feel like I've worked with students the most. I've also worked for other mentoring programs, more academic programs like Higher Achievement in the past. I worked at the Lakeland, in the Lakeland Middle School, in that area with Higher Achievement. And I've also worked with college level students as well. I know that's outside the K through 12 realm, but I work with college level students as well, just provide them tutoring services and things like that. So I feel like I've kind of have a kind of broad range of working with the youth in that way, but most of it has been within my nonprofit arena.
Thank you. Any other questions before we close out?
Mr. Jameson, what's your position on school police?
My position, I would say I see the value in having school police. For all the, I mentioned before, I know that one of, the commissioner's kind of duties is to provide that safe learning environment. And so I understand how school police can do that. Personally, I also feel like it's, kind of can be a little intimidating for students as well. And you kind of make them feel like they are, being policed in a way. And so my position, to answer your question more directly, is that while school police are needed, I think the branding of it can be a little different, just to let students know that they're not necessarily there to police them, but more so there to ensure their safety. And I think that in doing and kind of just having that rebranding, maybe students would be a little more open to that police presence, in schools, because I feel like, and it's just from, interacting and talking with students, they feel like, they are being policed, or, that those school police are there to enforce, some type of, laws or procedures against them. Whereas though I don't, why that may be, some schools may have that stance, I feel like overall, they're there to keep the students safe. And I think that, kind of rebranding them in a way that lets the students know that is kind of the way to go. But in that regard, I'm for, or I'm pro having, the schools, having police in schools.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you very much. Were there any additional questions at all?
I have a quick one. What is the largest budget you've managed, and what would you say is the hardest part of managing that budget?
I would say the largest budget I've managed was a grant that we had for, I believe it was 15,000. I believe it's numbers between 10 and 15,000. So not large in a budgetary sense. But the challenges to me, to be honest, in managing a budget is really, I don't want to say, well, I'll say it this way, sticking to it. And what I mean by that is, when you write a proposal, and of course, you itemize and you propose what you need the funds for. And, as you get into the implementation of, whatever program or what have you, for me, it was a budget for our actual program. And so once we knew that we had a budget, we wanted to help more people, right? And so we wanted to stretch it as much as we could. And so the challenge was really just to make sure that we kind of stayed within the scope of, what we proposed. Although our hearts may have been in the right place to want to help more people, we still wanted to make sure that we executed and were, good stewards of that money in a way to make sure that we still met our goals and things like that. So for me, the challenge is definitely, once we have resources, is making sure that we stay in scope and making sure that we don't overextend ourselves.
Thank you. Any additional questions from the community panel? Okay, thank you. At this time, thank you very much, Mr. Jameson, for your time. For any next steps, someone from the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success will be reaching out to you with any additional information. But thank you very much for your time and for your attention to this application and the process thus far.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great learning experience. Have a great evening.
You too. All right, we're going to keep rolling with our next candidate, Jasmine Miller. Jasmine Miller will be joining us next for our next candidate interview. Jasmine, are you on? You are still on mute, Jasmine.
Now I gotta do it.
Okay, I just want to make sure I am pronouncing your name correctly. It is Jasmine Miller, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, lovely, perfect. Good evening to you. So we are going to go ahead and get this started. So we are going to begin our interview for Ms. Jasmine Miller for a candidate for the Board of School Commissioners for Baltimore City Public Schools. This meeting is subject to Open Meetings Act, and it will be recorded for any further review, and it is open to the public. After we after this, we'll go ahead and introduce each one of our community panel members, and they will talk and they will introduce themselves and the organization that they represent. After that, I'll give it to you, Ms. Miller, and then you can introduce yourself and give us a brief, just any brief introduction you would like to add. Everyone on this call and all of the community panel members have access to all of the materials that you submitted in our portal, and they had that before your interview for this evening. But before we begin, I'm going to go ahead and give it to the Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, Dr. Deborah Y. Brooks, to give you for a message.
Thank you, Ms. Lugay. Again, I apologize. I'm having technical difficulties, so I am still on my phone. But I want to first thank Ms. Lugay again for facilitating this process and share that the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success just facilitates the process. We do not vote, nor do we make recommendations. We are just the keeper of the process to ensure transparency and that there is consistency with the process. So again, thank you, Ms. Lugay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brooks. With that, we're going to go ahead and introduce our community panel members, just starting on my screen, and then from there, we'll give it over to you, and then we'll start with our questions. Mackenzie?
Mackenzie Allen, Executive Director of the Maryland Alliance of Public Charter Schools.
Diamond Tay?
Diamond Tay Brown, Baltimore Teachers Union President.
Carl?
Good evening, Carl E. Perry, President of Pizzazza, our Administrators Union.
Leah?
Leah Stearns, and I'm representing ACBC.
Charles?
Hi, Charles Smith, PTA Council of Baltimore City. Sorry about the phone.
It's fine. Larry?
Larry Simmons, the Parent and Community Advisory Board of Baltimore City Schools.
Thank you. And I do want to acknowledge that Ms. Moore is on the phone. I'm on the call this evening from Baltimore City Public Schools. Okay, I believe, and we can go ahead and you can introduce yourself, Jasmine.
My name is Jasmine Miller. I don't really represent anything. Everybody had like an organization they represented. I can give you a quick synopsis of me. I grew up at Emerson Avenue in Poplar Grove. My first school I ever went to, which is now shut down, was Alexander Hamilton Elementary. It was a middle school at that point, but it ended up becoming an elementary school. I was blessed enough to be able to test out. I think that's how that process worked. After somebody who had a gun ran into the school, and my teacher told my mom that she had to get me off the school before I became another statistic. This was back in like, oh God, 08, 09. It's probably not that long. Like 08, 09. So I was blessed enough to test into Federal Hill, and then Federal Hill set me up for Roland Park, so on and so forth. As I said inside my letter, I wasn't able to go to college, so I went straight into the workforce. I worked, I don't say bottom of the bottom, but I worked at Royal Farms. I've done the Walmart. I was blessed enough to be able to network my way into a paralegal position. Worked at the hospital at some point, got my CNA, and now I work at a nursing home as an activities assistant. But being able to become a paralegal kind of opened me up into, I've always wanted to help, but it opened me up into knowing that I have the power to do so. Which unfortunately not a lot of people know. So my main goal is just to help and to not talk about what could change or what I would change or all that other good stuff, but to actually be about it. I always say talk is cheap. Actions is what actually pays the bills. So I don't know if that's what you guys wanted.
Oh, that was perfectly fine, Ms. Miller. We appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and get started with the questions in the question bank. And we will start with Leah.
Okay. What would you consider your most important leadership experience to date?
Most important, I would say I value all of them, but surprisingly, it would have to be Royal Farms. I started working at Royal Farms when I was 17. I was turning 18. I got pushed into a manager position, and it taught me how to, one, communicate with other people effectively. Nobody ever teaches you how to communicate effectively in a way where you're also taking into account other people's feelings. But also Royal Farms, as you know, like if I worked on the one on Washington Boulevard, like 1801 Washington Boulevard, Merle Park type Royal Farms. So it really taught me how to like block out all the outside stuff that was going on and kind of zero in and focus in on, hey, what is this goal? And even with my residents, I tell my residents, like, let's set a small goal for today. So it taught me, like, don't try to take on everything at once. Do little things at a time, because life be life, and it don't be gentle life. So sometimes you just got to take it 1 second at a time, one small goal at a time. And that's really benefited me in, like, the long run on just keeping my mental, like, so like keeping my mental, yeah. That was the answer, yeah.
Thank you. Carl, you're up next.
Okay, great. Ms. Miller,
Mm-hmm.
one thing I had to say, don't you ever change, okay? Don't you ever change. Part of the role of the Board of School Commissioners is to hold the CEO accountable. How should the board evaluate the CEO? What components of the CEO's job should be assessed?
Okay, I feel like that mainly goes into what the overall goal is. Like, you always have to work towards something. Excuse my washer in the background if you can hear it, but you always have to work towards something. So if your goal is for that specific like session or what the CEO is specifically doing, like if your goal is to overall make the school system better for teachers or increase teachers' pay or whatever. That's the first example, right? First, have to figure out, hey, is he or she doing small things to get to that goal? What are you doing? Because you just can't sit inside a seat and not say like, oh yeah, I'm doing this, and that, and you're not actually doing something. So figure out what they're doing, what the goal is, and having meetings like, hey, we're working on this. This is the feedback that we're getting, and have that open-ended discussion. And I hate to sound so urban, but keep it 100. Like, hey, I don't really think this is possible for real. Like, I don't foresee this happening, but this is something that we could probably work towards instead. So yeah, open-ended communication, set that goal, and then just making sure like, hey, are you really, like I said, are you just talking or are you actually making actions towards the stuff? And can we trust you? That's the main thing. Like, can we really trust you? Like, okay, that's it. That's my answer.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Miller, my question is, what role do you think youth leadership should play in Baltimore City Public Schools?
I love this question. So I put it on my thing, but I'm mentored through Heart Smiles. And if you don't know about Heart Smiles, it's a Black-owned, female-owned, kind of peer-to-peer youth to mentor kind of business thing. So when it comes to youth leadership, sorry, that was a little much. When it comes to youth leadership, that's my thing. I feel like any conversation that has to do with the youth, somebody who's a youth should be a part of it, regardless. And that goes for any type of situation, but the youth should be a part of it. If you're talking about, hey, example, you're talking about, hey, we want to put healthier vending machines inside schools. Hey, a youth representative needs to be there because you're not going to experience the changes that you're making. You're not. It's going to fall on them, and it's going to fall on the people after them. It's going to fall on their little sisters, their little brothers, their little cousins. And that's unfortunate because you have people, I'm not going to go off on a rant, but you have, you just can't make a decision without them. They should be there. That's all I'm going to say. And I can go on a whole 2-hour-long spiel on that, but they should be there. They should be a part of the conversation. And you have to also work towards building leaders. Like teachers every single day, they try to do their best, but you guys are not babysitters at the end of the day. Teachers are not babysitters. So you need to have somebody inside that school that's focused on, like Heart Smiles, wink, that's focused on, hey, let's build these leaders. Let's speak life into them. Let's do this because, again, sometimes second by second, y'all can't focus on all of that. As adults, you can only do but so much, but having somebody who looks like them and speaks their lingo and talk like them inside that, again, I can go on the whole spiel, is important. So helping build leaders and have them a part of that conversation. Sorry, I got excited.
I'm sorry, Mackenzie, you'll be next.
Hi, what role do you think charter schools play in the city schools portfolio of schools?
Okay, I can also get excited about this one because I used to mentor at Bliss. And I'm not too well versed on what exactly charter school is or all that good stuff, but I do know that from my understanding, from what I experienced at Bliss, they're like independently funded or something of that thing. I know Bliss was at one point was in danger of getting shut down because they were running through principals or whatever. But charter schools matter just as much as city schools. Like, it's a school, kids are going there. Granted, they may have more or less resources. It depends on the school. But you guys are just as included, just as important. And even if there's like a separate little, oh, there's a board or whatever, like I said, I'm very ignorant on charter schools. So excuse me if I misspeak. Even if there's like a separate board to sit there and make those decisions, it should still kind of fall back into the kind of city school thing. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? It might not, because I'm ignorant on charter schools, but you get the premise. You get the premise. You get the premise.
Thank you. Also, that's the closest Royal Farms to my house, so shout out to you.
Oh, bless your heart. Bless your heart. I worked at 3599. I worked all up and down Washington Boulevard. And in stores. In stores. I have to preface that because Royal Farms, Walmart, Chick-fil-A, another Royal Farms. Yo, I'm sorry. I'm like this all the time. But it was something. I almost got robbed at that Royal Farms. They tried to get me. Ghetto.
Oh, thank you so much.
Larry, okay, you.
Thank you so much. So share how you see the role of the CEO and the role of the school board. How do they differ? And how do they overlap? And then ultimately, how do they interact?
I apologize if the CEO is on here. But again, I have excuse like the way I may come across. I'm very like brutally honest. I'm like a bougie Baltimorean. That's what I say. But when I think of like the CEO, and I hate to say this is gonna sound so mean, but the CEO is like the person who does all the press conferences. When you think of, oh, the school board, you may think of the CEO of the school board, but really like, I don't want to say this and it sound mean, and the CEO's on here and he just says no. But they're kind of at the same level as the people who are on the board. Nobody's more important than anybody else. You may be a CEO, that's a nice title, all that good stuff. You may have some more responsibilities, but at the end of the day, we all work together towards the same goal. Okay. Your goal can't be to sell fries and everybody else's goal is to sell chicken tenders. That's not the way that works. Okay. We all have to be on the same page. We all have to work towards the same thing. Your effort is just as important as everybody else's effort. Okay. It's one of those, like, you may be the face, but we're all just as important and we all should be working towards the same thing. Again, if the CEO's on here, don't hold it against me.
Thank you, Charles.
And don't worry, she's not.
Okay. Woo!
Okay, what was the hardest decision impacting youth that you've had to make? Describe how you made that decision and the result of the decision on that youth.
I have a personal one and I have like a work-related one. My personal one would be to move out my mom's house. My mom and dad's house. I would say my mom's house, they together, they married. They've been married for 30-something years. But to move out my parents' house. It affected me because, now I got grown people bills, okay? I got grown people responsibilities, grown people bills, and I don't get to be that, even though I don't know how my life would have turned out if I had it chosen to move out. But I don't get to have like the usual 21-year-old life. Like you go to parties, you get drunk. That doesn't interest me at all. But I kind of took that being a kid experience away from me, or irresponsible young adult. And that was for the sake of my relationship with my mom. And I had to make a real big grown-up decision to, hey, I want my mom to be inside my future kids' lives. I want to still have a relationship with her. As my mom said, there can't be two women inside the same house. So I had to make that decision to move out. I had its ups and downs. Okay, my last apartment flooded on Christmas Eve. Life do not be gentle life, man. But it also has taught me more responsibility than I already had. And it also taught me that like, life is going to come at you hard. Like, but it's up to you to deal with the impact. And I just carry that everywhere. Work related, I had to leave the law field because I started to become a robot. And as much as I loved it, oh my goodness, I love handing people settlement checks. I can do a personal injury case with my eyes closed. I learned it so fast. I fell in love with it. But I became a robot when tragedy struck. And it was when my Aunt Sarah ended up having a stroke inside the nursing home because they gave her the wrong medicine. And instead of me saying like, hey, Auntie, are you okay? Is everything okay? We need to move her out. My first instinct was, oh, that's a premises, or no. That's a nursing home neglect case. You should call Dave. And I had to check myself like, what? My aunt almost just died. And I'm so like numb to tragedy that it just doesn't. Yeah, but those are my two.
Were there any additional questions from the community panel at this time?
Ms. Miller, what's your position on school police?
My position on school, I loved my school police officer. I loved OT. Austin Thomas over at Poly and West End. I loved my school police officer, and he really became a safe space and a father figure for a lot of the people who were inside my school. I loved my middle school police officer. I love the school police officers who used to come to Federal Hill and like do the DARE program. I love that. So I've never had a bad interaction. Okay. I've always had pleasant ones, and they became like, that safe space and that father figure that a lot of people didn't have. And even though my dad was inside the hospital, he became that father figure for me at that point. So no bad juju there. But again, I'm also ignorant on other instances that might have happened. So don't quote me. Don't quote me too much.
Thank you.
Are there any other follow-up questions from Ms. Miller this evening?
I have just one more. Can you share any experience you've had in budgeting, complex budgets or any type of budgeting whatsoever?
So I had my own cupcake business. And when I first started it, I started because I need money. I'm not about to sit here and lie to y'all. It's a pretty nice business now, but I started it because I was broke and I wanted to go to New Jersey with my aunt. It's not all that good of a story, okay? But this year I really had to reevaluate my business because I was losing money. So I had to sit there and write out, hey, how much flour do I use? How much does flour cost? How much am I using for this? What's the approximate amount of this amount of flour? And do that with all my ingredients. Everything that I use for icing. I make about 12 different type of cupcakes. Did it for each different type of cupcakes to reevaluate all of my pricing. And also, I had my own apartment. I had to budget that check. Had to budget that check. And then how much it was going to cost me to get new furniture and everything. So I have light experience. The more complex one was the cupcakes, because you got to measure how much flour is in what, how many cups is inside a 5-pound bag of flour. How much do I pay for the flour if I go to Aldi's, Walmart? It took me days, but yeah, that's more complex. And a more regular one, more adult one is just budgeting that check. Amen. Amen.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. Were there any additional questions from anyone on the community panel this evening before we conclude Ms. Miller's interview?
I had one more question.
Of course.
You are very passionate when it comes to student voices, but I want to know, to what extent do you think that students should be involved in different things?
I think honestly, I wouldn't even say honestly, depends on what you're referencing. If we're dealing with schools, the youth, the people who are going to be inside the school should be involved. Now, I'm not saying put a pre-K or a kindergartner up there. That's going to be too much for their minds. But there most definitely should be a student representative for everything that has to do with the schools. Because like I said, it's not going to affect even me. It's not going to affect me, but it's going to affect the students. So they should be a part of it, or at least know. You get me? It should be that open-ended communication. Like how Miss Lugay, excuse me, I don't want to pronounce your name wrong. Like how she said the video thing is being recorded. That's how it should be. So if they want to go and reference it, hey, in this meeting, I was said, all right, cool. If there should be, well, I don't know. Like I said, I'm ignorant. But that, hey, monthly meeting, if the kids want to come, or one of the people who are on the school board, which what I put inside my essay is that they should go to the schools. Each person should get a little district and go visit those schools and talk to them about what's going on. But that's neither here nor there. Have that, because it's not going to take that much out of your day. That's like what, 3 days going to all these different schools, talking to them, let them know what's going on. It should be that communication, because student voices matter, and I'm tired of them getting quieted because it's grown people stuff. They should be a part of that conversation. Like I said, I'm passionate.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your responses. Any additional questions at this time from the community panel? Perfect. So at this time, we're going to conclude our interview for the candidate, Ms. Jasmine Miller. And Ms. Miller, you will hear a follow-up from someone from the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success about any next steps or what is next to come. We enjoyed your time with us this evening, and we appreciate your time and commitment going through the application process and getting to this point thus far.
No, thank you. If you guys ever want cupcakes, it's Keira Cakes. I don't got my thing. KEYAIRA KAKES. I didn't make sure I spelled it right. But yeah, it's Keira Cakes. So if you're ever interested, I make cupcakes. And then if you have like a student-led event, or especially Miss Brown, if you're doing like something for the teachers and the teachers union, I would be happy to donate those cupcakes, because I don't charge for like things that have to do with kids or church or education.
Well, don't forget the principals union then.
Of course. My principal, Miss Williams, I had Director Williams.
Okay.
At Poly. And then,
okay.
Oh my goodness, I forgot his name. Oh, he was white. He had Ace now. I loved all my principals. They didn't expel me. Shout out to them. Shout out to them.
Miss Williams was great at Poly.
Yes.
Yes, she was.
Yes.
She truly was.
First Black full-on female director. Because Miss Strickland was the first technically female director, but Miss Williams was the first Black female director. That's Black excellence right there. That's beautiful.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay. Toodaloo.
We appreciate you. Thank you so much. MOCFS team, we can end recording so I can, because I think I want to give them the update about the next candidate, and I don't want it's the
Okay.
personnel thing.
All right.